So what is another NBA legend saying about Steph Curry? Well, the answer might surprise you. What's not surprising overall is that people are talking a lot about Stephen Curry and his legacy in the league after his Golden State Warriors won their 4th title in 8 years, all 4 of which featured him in a starring role alongside some all-time talent like Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Kevin Durant. But even with all his accolades, Steph Curry still isn't in the top 10 all-time in the minds of some players. But for legendary player Derek Fisher, he is of a different mindset entirely, because he puts Curry alongside some of his former teammates. Derek Fisher on Curry. The Los Angeles Lakers of the 2000s with Shaq and Kobe Bryant are still considered one of the greatest teams ever assembled. On that team was Derek Fisher, who was with them for all their title victories. Fisher had his fair share of moments, including the iconic 0.4-second buzzer beater against the San Antonio Spurs in the 2004 Western Conference semifinals. Despite his heroics, there's no question Steph Curry is the far superior player to Fisher without a question, and is considered the greatest shooter of all time. Not only is the now 4-time champ the greatest shooter ever, Curry is also a part of a Warriors dynasty that has won 4 championships in 7 years, which included 3 in 4 years. Not quite a three-peat, but it was the closest three-peat since the Lakers, and one of the championships matched the Lakers with just 1 loss the entire playoffs. Fisher has seen the greatness of Curry and knows the impact he has created for the new era of basketball, and has even compared his legacy to that of Kobe and Shaq. Steph Curry has separated himself as one of the few guys in the history of our game that, when you look back, wherever he was or whenever he played, his teams were really successful. I put him in that category with Tim Duncan, Kobe, and Shaq. Wherever he is, success is going to follow. Very high praise, wouldn't you say? And many would agree that Curry has that it factor, if you will, that makes his teams better. And he elevates them even when he has no help, like what we saw in the 2020-2021 season where, in the course of a few months, he basically single-handedly led them into the playoff tournament before finally having it all catch up to him. But then last year, with the help he needed, he got the team to the NBA Finals, won his 4th title, and finally got the Finals MVP. Yet, while many won't agree on where he stands all time, his journey to being one of the best ever is clear for all to see. And it starts with his father. Dell Curry, the father who seeded and nurtured this force of basketball, shook his head when asked about his son's roadmap to three-point riches last December. In Chicago the other day, I saw LeVar Ball at the game wearing a hat that said, "I told you so," said Dell, mentioning the bombastic father of LaMelo and Lonzo. Well, my hat would say, "I had no idea." On several occasions after George Karl blew his whistle to signal the end of the Bucks' practice in 1999, a curious phenomenon occurred. Instead of going home, players gathered round to witness the show featuring a holy trinity of shooters. Allen, who was in the early stages of becoming the most prolific three-point shooter the NBA ever saw, Dell Curry, winding down a 14-year career as the most accurate distance shooter at the time, 47.6% that season, and young Steph, all of 10 years old. The three teamed up and challenged all comers in shooting contests, usually squaring off against Glenn Big Dog Robinson and Vinny Del Negro and whomever else wanted some. And the results were what you'd expect. "We never lost a game," Dell says. Karl, the coach, was so charmed by the kid that he demanded that Dell bring him whenever possible. And Allen? He told the father, "Man, do you know what you have here?" Not long after he was born in 1988, Steph would attend his father's games in a portable crib, and Dell noticed how he woke up when the game started, stayed awake the whole time, then fell back to sleep when it was over. And Steph recalls, "When I was 3 or 4, I have faint memories of going to a Hornets game. When I was 6, they beat Boston in the first round of the playoffs, and Alonzo Mourning hit that jumper from the free throw line. My father was the inbounds passer on that play, so I have these strong memories of watching basketball." Maybe by osmosis and being around the environment, I developed a love for it, developed an understanding of how the game was played. Then, I fell in love with shooting while watching my dad. It wasn't intentional, it was natural. Dell chuckled at suggestions he's the Earl Woods of basketball. Yet, there is some semblance. Earl taught Tiger how to swing a club, and Dell taught the greatest shooter how to shoot. And that's a fact that no one can truly deny. Getting to the level of greatness. It should also be noted that for much of his young life, Steph was the shortest player in any group or team. At the time, it seemed like a curse. That's why the blue blood basketball programs ignored him, and he wound up at a small school called Davidson College. But it forced him to compensate. So he worked on his dribble to create distance between himself and the defender to prevent his shot from being blocked constantly. The astonishing hand-eye coordination and deceptive bounce are so apparent in his dribble today. Curry owns one of the sport's most tenacious handles, which serves two functions. It keeps the defender off balance in case Curry decides to attack the basket. That part of his game is so understated. And it also allows Curry to sneakily square up for threes. Coming into this season, 54% of Curry's career three-point attempts have been pull-ups. The quick release was more important early, Steph says. With my height, I had to use that to my advantage, get my shot off quick. In the NBA, open space continues to get decreased. Then, as I got that down, being able to expand my range and create space with the ball, the dribble became equally important. He also worked hard to be accurate from distances that most wouldn't even dream of shooting at. Sign of things to come, as you all well know. Dedication. Most people will tell you that you need to fight and work hard for your dreams. And for Steph Curry, that was never a problem. Growing up around the game, going to camps with me, all that played a part, Dell says. I also think by being exposed early, he learned how to play the right way. He was always smaller than everyone, so he knew he would have to have the guard skills. And that he has, and his desire to be better than all those who are there or are coming up drives him. Even his brother Seth, who is also in the NBA, knows that all too well. Even though he's been the best at it for a long time, he's still working on his game and improving, Seth says. Seems like every year he's improving his three-point shooting. He knows everybody's trying to come up with ways to stop him, so that's the special part in what he's doing right now. Indeed, Steph Curry is so special, no doubt about it, which makes it oh so curious why so many try and downplay his legacy at points. All-time great. By that, we mean that even though he's a four-time champ, the all-time leader in three-point shots made, a two-time MVP, he has been to the finals 6 times, and many other accolades, there are still people who say he's not a top 10 player, which, to be frank, it's kind of dumb. A lot of people held Curry back because he had Kevin Durant on his squad for 2 of those titles. Even though KD hasn't won a title without Curry, so who really helped who here? Also, many people said Curry needed to get the finals MVP for himself, which is arbitrary as all get out. He is the best pure shooter this game has ever seen and broke the mold on what it means to be a champion. So it's good to see that some people like Derek Fisher hold him in truly high esteems. And hopefully, if he gets another ring on his finger, people will finally see the light. So what do you think? What do you think of this look at Stephen Curry and how Derek Fisher compares him to Shaq and Kobe? Or how about why many think he's the best pure shooter of all time? Where does Stephen Curry rank on your NBA all-time list? And do you think he's going to get even higher on it before his time in the NBA comes to a close? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time on the channel.